Good afternoon, everyone. It's me, Joey, and today I'm going to answer some questions that people have posted in the group. That's right. It's my 45th birthday today, and I got nothing else to do. Yeah, but answer your questions. That's right.
Sketched out. Big moose. Getting angrier. Now if we jump off the roof. There she goes. You never know what can happen. What's going on, you know. Here she comes. That was pretty close.
So that's the group I run on Facebook, Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers here in British Columbia. 17.4 thousand members. Pretty cool. Lots of questions I say to people, so let's get right to it. Ken Bayer says, I'm wondering how to reconcile between moving trees on a property for fire smart and then having the lack of shade increased heating that will result. Will this make everything drier and hotter? Absolutely, yes. Yes, it will. So the more you open your ground up to the sun, the more you're going to have ground getting baked dry, which is problematic in itself. So you want to find this balance where shade is part of your property, especially because not only does that direct sunlight dry the fuels out that may be available to burn in your property, but also if there is fire happening at your property, that increased sunlight is going to make the fire burn more aggressively, right? So that's what fire does. It gets, you see this when you're a firefighter. You watch when the sun gets onto a hot spot that's been in the shade for the afternoon, and you watch the fire stand up and start doing things. It's that simple, right? So you do want shade. Absolutely. There is a fine balance there for sure.
All right, on the question of fire smarting. So this is unfortunate because there's so much snow here. I can't actually get across to show you the work I did here at the ball field in Wells in 2018. But we can give some representative examples over here. The question being, the balance between shade and fire smart. So I'll give you some examples here. This corner was grown in a fair bit, had quite a bit. So I probably removed most of the saplings that were coming up at the time, knocked them back down. And the question about shade, well, you see here's some trees that can provide shade. They're tall enough, big enough. And what have I done is I've completely, in the past, took away every branch. So you can walk underneath them nice and easily. Took away every branch. So I don't think the issue really is whether there's trees in your property or not. That's a good thing, having some trees, and some shade is good. In fact, shade can help fire behavior, suppress it a little bit, right? When the fire's in a shady spot, it is not getting that direct sunlight. It's going to suppress that behavior a little bit. So here are good examples to cut through all the undergrowth. Now if fire kind of crawls through here, it can't easily climb up into the trees. And it's when it climbs up in the trees that you start getting that next level heat going on. Then it starts throwing embers. Then it starts...
He says he's got beauty trees. They really keep their home micromanagement noticeably cooler in the heat of the fall. And this is, of course, problematic for what fire is doing in general in British Columbia as it continues to burn off the forest cover. Then what it's doing in the air, what's it leaving in behind is this barren ground that gets sun-baked and cooked, right? And that cooking often kills some of the organic nutrients in the soil. The soil, just gets sun-baked.
I was very... single-minded about what I was doing. I had a really good idea how I wanted to look, what I wanted to do. I cut so much saplings out, is the big one, and turned it into essentially a bit of a lawn here, which isn't maybe the natural state of things, but to the edge of the ball field, when you first come into town now, it just looks so nice compared to how it used to look on this corner, right? So there's the added advantage that not only is it fire smarting, but it makes your property usable. You can go walk underneath these trees without getting too many branches in the face. What happened to you?
Ecologically, it's very hard for the land to recover. So you look at places like Barrier where the fires happened, and when they did, that was quite a few years ago, right? That was 2004, and when you go there now, there's still no forest there because it's so much that it was low quality soil to begin with, and it's cooked now. It's really cooked. So it's going to be hard for that land to recover. And this is how ecologically things keep changing.
So if possible, try to have the tree length from your house, because in case they candle, but also because trees fall. It's good sense to have some space between the trees in your house if possible, and if you do have closer trees, then try to try to keep that ground fuel down, keep anything away from them that would help fire climb up them. So that if you have fire come through your property, it's just snaking around in the grass, which is a lot easier to deal with than the crazy heat that can come once it starts getting in the treetops and the canopies. And, you know, it's sucking air now, driving that heat to a place where the fire is going to become very hard to control or do anything with. And it's going to start throwing embers all over the place, possibly onto your roof, onto your burnables and things like that. So I think you get those branches down, you keep that yard nice and clean, you're going to have a really good chance of protecting your house when fire does come.
Ken says, I realize it's kind of like living beside a virtual bomb in the worst case scenario. Shuswap fires could easily jump to my part of the lake, and we got lucky. So, I mean, the big thing really, Ken, is just keeping all those ground fuels away from the tree, keeping the trees trimmed high up, right? And the great thing is we have some other people talking here. Kenton Turchinit says, plant deciduous trees now and give them a chance to get established before cutting the evergreens. Prune the evergreens as Fire Smart has recommended. I believe the branches prune 6 feet up, 6 or 10 apart. They won't look as nice, but it'll be way less of a hazard. But, you know, as I showed you over at the baseball field here, it is nice because now you can walk through your property without, and you can see through your property too. You can see the other side of your property if there's kids playing or animals moving or whatever. You can see because the tree branches are no longer not blocking. As the saying goes, you can't see the forest through the trees. You know, that's kind of what we're getting at here, right? So when you have that, all that eye level stuff cut away, it's not only a fire hazard, but it actually makes the property fairly usable if you have a lot of forest, right? So Katie wonders about this because she has 7 massive spruce right beside the house. She has an arborist check on them every couple of years to determine if they're healthy. But next door neighbor's always worried they'll fall in their house. And I think that's a right thing to worry about. Spruce trees don't have the taproot in the middle. And this is something that we notice on fires all the time, that as soon as the fires come through the ground at all near the spruce trees, they fall, right? So a lot of trees, they have their established main roots, but then beneath them still the tree itself continues down into the ground. Well, spruce don't do that. Spruce are just like 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 main roots, generally, maybe, you know, depending, and nothing goes down. So if any of those 2 roots burn off or are damaged or let go, that tree's coming down. So spruce are a very problematic tree in general. Sorry, I'm hiccuping. She's been quoted over $5,000 to move them. People can't afford that, right? I mean, depending on the safety of it, you could find a guy like me who might be willing to do it for you. And Kenton says it right on. Spruce can be dangerous. We know the science of spruce. They have shallow roots. You love it. They're beautiful trees, and you feel safe as it's 100 feet from the other conifers. But he was shocked at how small the root ball was. So this is why we always have people who work as danger tree assessors on a fire. And what we do is we make sure to go and assess trees, often spruce, to see what are the likelihood these trees are going to fall, right? So that is a great point. When you have wind and varying weather conditions and what are your trees rooted to, you know, 5,000 is a lot to move a tree, but if that tree lands in your neighbor's house, 5,000 is cheap. B Porter is asking, what do I know about geoengineered weather manipulation? And, you know, I kind of gave an answer on this. It's like, I don't want to talk about this too much on my channel anymore because I made a couple videos saying how there's a lot of misconceptions about what we can actually achieve in weather manipulation, weather modification. People think we can do like crazy things, and no, there's been some success in trying to make it rain in a place that's desperate need of rain, with mixed results, with a lot of resources, and the timing has to be just right. So it's cloud seeding, it exists, as well as the high frequency active auroral research program cannot manipulate your weather. The HARP project is very much interested in studying northern lights and things like that. The problem is when I go and made a video about that, saying, hey, you can actually go up to Alaska. The University of Alaska runs the HARP program. It's not a U.S. military program. Maybe it was for a short time. It ceased to have usefulness to them, and it just now remains a research facility for understanding, essentially geomagnetic storms and things like this, right? So you can go there and get a free tour of the facility. In fact, you can be a student and go there and study all you want there. It says these are not secrets. You think they're secrets, and people tell you, and like, oh, well, it's the HARP project. It's these aren't secrets, okay? You're barking up a tree that's got nothing up it. So the point is, I don't like to make another video about such things on my channel because what happened was, people don't really watch my channel. There's a few of you who are dedicated to a small following, and I appreciate it. I keep doing this for you and for my own mental health. But the reality is, my videos aren't watched by the public in great amount. When I make a video that says why the HARP project is not controlling your weather, what happens is then I have to turn commenting off because hate and anger and insults, calling me a libtard and a fucking idiot. And it's like, wow, I made this video trying to educate people or trying to help people who are on the fence understand, but all it did was attract people who are definitely not on the fence, who are very committed to conspiracy theories. So, it's like, why talk about something that's just going to get the conspiracy people angry and talking? And which is also why in Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers, I don't want our group to be a climate change discussion group generally, right? Climate change is happening. The science is clear. Only you doubt it. But the science world does not. That goes for questions like geoengineering. How can we manipulate the weather? So basically, cloud seeding is the most common. Geoengineering is the term used to describe the manipulation of weather to combat the effects of global warming, according to Oxford Geoengineering Program. So there's basically two kinds. There's carbon dioxide removal, and then the other kind is solar and geoengineering. Removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere helps prevent the sun's warmth being trapped. So most people who are thinking, well, geoengineering is what's making climate change happening. Well, actually, no, geoengineering may be one of our best methodologies to mitigate the reality of climate change. Cloud seeding is a method used to make clouds, rainy clouds. Using aircraft, drones, or rockets, small particles of silver or lead iodide are released into the sky. These particles have a similar structure to ice, the water droplets in the cloud, which are too small to fall as rain. As the water and silver iodide combine, ice crystals form. Eventually, the ice crystals become too heavy to remain in the air, and they fall, they melt, and become raindrops. During the Vietnam War in 1974, the U.S. military used such technology. Let's talk about that. The Army used cloud seeding to alter the weather. The aim was to prolong the monsoon season in Vietnam, making fighting more difficult for the enemy. Mixed results. It was Operation Popeye. It meant U.S. troops were more prepared for the extensive rainy season. Military pilots flew over chosen regions with canisters of silver or lead iodide. They were ignited to release the particles in the clouds. When the events of Operation Popeye were published, the ban was put in place by the European Modification Convention to prevent military tactics that controlled the weather. So this is illegal. China used weather modification program to control weather forecasts for Beijing Olympics. The country carried out cloud seeding in the capital to ensure that rain fell before events like the opening ceremony rather than during them. So they helped. It was probably going to rain anyways, but they just kind of sped the process up. And why does this work? It works because of this principle. Most rain actually begins as snow high in the clouds. The snowflakes fall through the warmer air, they become raindrops. And what do you need to make this happen is that literally bacteria is present in the sky, and that's what helps. That's little bits of moisture cling to this bacteria up there. That's why they say, just drinking rain isn't good for you, because a lot of the rain, or eating snow, because that snow starts from bacteria. It required bacteria in order to exist. So the bacteria affects plants and multiply. So they're swept into the aerosols into the sky. They prompt the formation of ice crystals, which melt as they fall to the earth, causing rain at higher temperatures. The reason we are able to make rain is because we understand where rain comes from because of science. But that's to a limited effect. And the reason that people are really pushing this, the government's controlling the weather thing, is because they don't want to admit the very basic truth, which is that climate change is human caused and is happening. You can't deny that. You can try, but you don't have evidence, you don't have science. The science is clear. We've known since the 1850s that carbon traps and transports heat. No amount of pretending that the government is controlling the weather is going to change the fucking reality, okay? Stop denying climate change. And I'm not saying that's what Peter is doing, but that's what people are doing all the time. Tired of this discussion. And we're going to have a similar one here with David Berg in a second. And not only can you not rely on it, it's a localized effect. Like you could maybe cloud seed over Quesnel and try to encourage Quesnel, but it won't change the overall drought picture in British Columbia, right? So no amount of cloud seeding can really change the fact that we are in drought yet. What we need to have is a change from El Nino fading, which is happening, and a La Nina pattern bringing us rain. That's happening. But so the next question, though, is on the same sort of lines. Do you think the sun cycles are impacting our weather? And this is basically the same question as like, is the volcano going on in Iceland having any effect on our weather? And the answer is no, not really, right? And even Hunga Tunga Hapai volcano, which was a very large explosive, a very, very large explosivity, it did put a lot of moisture up high in the air, and that did result in a small amount of warming, negligible in some senses, but present, measurable. It did that. But in order to do that, it had to have a very explosive volcano that was able to thrust water way up into the air. Now, what's going on in Iceland is we're not having a volcano that's doing anything like that. It's not putting up with that kind of water into the atmosphere whatsoever. The only thing it could be doing is actually cooling things. But seeing as March just brought us yet another month where we have topped the global temperature average, this has been going on for over a year now, the hottest months ever recorded are just happening in succession. If that volcano, behaving as it is, which is mostly just, it's a land volcano that's spewing a lot of smoke and ash and things in the air, that would have the effect of cooling the planet. It's not doing that, right? And then we go to sun cycles and we look at sun cycles. Let's talk about that. What does NASA say right here? The sun can influence Earth's climate, but it isn't responsible for the warming trend we've seen over recent decades. And the reality is the sun isn't doing anything that unusual. There's no, if you look at the history of solar activity, nothing that's going on right now is any more elaborate or more extreme than anything that's happened in the past, right? So there hasn't been this remarkable change that would need to happen in order to drive the climate, and saying, well, the poles are changing. That's not changing the climate either, okay? There's only one thing doing it. It's human-caused climate change. We know subtle changes in Earth's orbit around the sun are responsible for the comings and goings of the ice ages. Well, what's cool is they know this, but you know what else they knew? When is the next solar eclipse? Watch this. Next solar, August 23rd, 2044 will be the next one in North America here. They know that to the second. Right? That it's not a matter of like sometime around 2044. They could tell you 200, 500 years ago, they could tell you that this was going to happen on April 8th. It just happened. We knew that was going to happen. So, the fact that NASA is well aware of the position of the Earth's orbit is not news. Okay? That is very basic stuff compared to, we've been measuring these things out for thousands of years. So we have all the sophisticated technology and the minds and the brightest minds in the world working on this kind of stuff now. We're very clear on where the Earth's orbit is and what's going on out there. We know we got cameras in the sun. We're watching every sunspot. We know when it's been active. We know when it's been quiet. Okay? The sun is not changing the climate right now. You're digging for an answer that says it's not because of humans. And the reality is, it's because of humans. All the warming that's going on right now is basically because of human activity on planet Earth. There is no other thing. So when Brendan McKenzie says, I do not deny climate change, I just don't agree with what's causing it, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing, because we have evidence. We know what carbon does. We know what greenhouse gases are. We can test them. We can prove it. We can repeat the experiments. We know for a fact that carbon and water and methane and things like that trap heat. And we know exactly how much is in the atmosphere. We got stations out in Hawaii measuring it. We know how much that has grown between 1950 something, when they started that particular research station, to the present. They've seen the trend in greenhouse gas rising, and the temperature is exactly with it on the trend. The combined land and ocean temperature has increased at an average rate of 0.11 Fahrenheit 0.06 Celsius per decade since 1850. And this is exactly in line with the carbon in the atmosphere, the measurable amount of carbon. The two are together. And now we're looking at 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade. So it's speeding up as the more greenhouse gases. Gases act similar to their glass in the greenhouse. They absorb the sun's heat that radiates from the Earth's surface, trap it in the atmosphere, and prevent it from escaping into space. Nobody in the world of science disagrees with this, okay? Nobody who is a climate scientist, nobody who's in weather disagrees with this. The odd person who steps up and says, "Oh, I'm a scientist and I don't agree with this. I'm a foot doctor." It doesn't fucking matter because you're a foot doctor. Your opinion doesn't matter. And that's what I want to talk about lastly here, about opinions not mattering. Aw, Sky. Love you, buddy. Making a video right now. So I don't agree with all the opinions scientists have, though, either. Doesn't going to get booted for arguing. And I'm not going to boot you for arguing, Kent, because you're trying to understand. It's a difference between trying to understand and telling me the way it is, even though you don't have any fucking clue. Okay? So you're trying to understand. I appreciate that. So Kenton says he doesn't agree with all scientists' opinions. But the point is, science is a process of observation, hypothesis, experimentation based on observable, measurable, and deterministic laws. Right? So a good example being, I might say, well, I kind of have this opinion. I want to test this out and see if it's true. My opinion, or my idea, my thought, my hypothesis is, if I drop this pack of native smokes, they will fall. It happened. Why? Why did that just happen? That's what science is trying to measure. So, how fast did it fall? What were all the specifics regarding that? To get to the understanding of gravity, we have to look at the facts of the issue. So it's not a matter of opinion. It doesn't matter what my opinions are. My opinions don't change the fact that if I unplug the vacuum cleaner, it will stop running. It needs electricity. Why? Because science. Things have to work according to certain conventions and laws, right? So, if some scientist is saying to you, it's my opinion that climate change isn't real, well, he's not acting like a scientist, first of all, because science does not care about your opinions. And furthermore, you're not entitled to have a wrong opinion. People will say to me, well, I'm entitled to my opinion. No, you're not entitled to be wrong, okay? I can't stop you from thinking those things, but that doesn't mean you get to the same respect or the same right to command audience that the truth gets. You don't. So the reality is that it doesn't matter what your opinion is on climate change, because your opinion is wrong and science doesn't fucking care. Science doesn't care about other science's opinions because there is no opinions in science. Science is about finding out what is fact. And when you take that experiment and you say, well, I replicated the results, they were the same pretty much every time, here they are, this is why I think it's happening, it's because of gravity, and then you take your published document and you bring it to a council of your peers who are scientists themselves, and what they do is they play devil's advocate, and they start trying to poke every hole they can. This is called the peer review process. They try to poke every hole, try to make every attempt to discredit and disprove what you are saying. And if they fail to change the outcome of your results, or fail to show any flaw in your results in any way, then those peers will pass your review and your work will become accepted science. So it's not a matter of opinions like, well, here's my editorial and there's your editorial. What do you think of his editorial? Well, I think it was well written. It was very nice. Okay, pass them. That's not what peer reviewed is. Okay? Peer reviewed is looking to get to the facts of the matter. Anyways, if you have any more questions, here's my birthday present to you today, everybody. I'm 45 years old. Yeah, 45, and I do this mostly because I'm a lonely man. I'm a lonely man. So thanks for being part of my journey. Appreciate it very much. So many of you supported me over the past. Kim Gucci and Dan giving me the jersey last week, and Lana sending me home with the care package, and just all the kind things people were writing on my Facebook today. And Billy Benito there from the Black Halos sending me his happy birthday thing. Yeah, that was so super cool. One last thing I'm just going to show before we go here today is that yesterday there was an explosion in Alberta, and we managed to find it when it was happening. So in just outside Edson, Alberta yesterday, there was this large explosion. It happened. It was a pipeline exploding, and I don't know what caused the pipeline to explode. It was a Trans-Canada pipeline in Edson site, and some very crazy images. Apparently, Alberta Wildfire was able to get there in time, and they shut the pipeline down, and they were able to get this fire under control. But you see the nature of the explosion. You can see how it's the shock wave and the energy just punching up into the atmosphere there, right? And that's what you see here in this video I compiled. So here you see, just nice overcast, cloudy day there outside Edson, and then all of a sudden, boom! There's your explosion, and I got it. That's the infrared. Here we'll see it invisible. See it punch right through all the changing clouds. Very cool looking, the cloud cover yesterday there. And then bam, punches right up through, and you see that shock wave, that energy blasting up and through. So there you go. Crazy looking explosion caught on the satellite. Yes, so poof. All under control. All under control. And you just get a big explosion in Western Canada, I suppose it's, one of the most obvious things to think about is it a pipeline or is it a train exploding? Those are two things that, so when we saw that show up on satellite, some of the guys from the Interior Ecological report, it might have been Justin Ordle who seen it first from Weather Center Manitoba, and then I went looking for it and found those images. So pretty cool when you can see things happening on, if you recall last year too, I was telling a lot of people details about what was going on with the big fire outbreaks because all those fires and their behavior was very visible on Doppler radar. Okay, that's all for me today, everyone. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Please hit like, share, subscribe. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you all so much.